Hey, this is Therese Kelly, and this is another episode of the podcast. You know, I started by calling this the Fiercely Here podcast, but what I really know is there's another version beyond Fiercely Here. It's fiercely brilliant. What? Does that just make you tingle? It makes me tingle because beyond being here, I want you to be freaking brilliant in the world. And so I love having these conversations with you, and I'm bringing on the coolest people to talk about the journey. Because what I really want, I want to provide hope, inspiration, and a path, right? Because on this path, it's not like, whoo, it's not like an escalator. It's like, oh, sweet Jesus, here we go. It's like that very often. And so sometimes it can get a little bit daunting, and or you can lose the hope, or you can lose your direction, or you can be easily influenced by other people that say, why don't you just get a good job with benefits? Like, raise your hand if you've never heard that, right? And so today I'm super excited to introduce Anke Herrmann to you. Now, Anke's got the coolest story, and you listen, there's an accent. I love people with accents. So Anke, just welcome.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Okay, so you have to tell them that I just find it cool. I've never moved anywhere. I'm like a freak of nature that was born in the city, stayed in the city. And so I'm always fascinated. So where are you from? Where did you go? Where are you now? I think that's cool.
Yeah, so I was born in Germany, actually, and to be precise, in East Germany. I always do mention that, even though the wall has fallen 30 years ago, but it has shaped quite a lot, you know, how my life went. And then basically I ended up in West Germany, obviously, and from there to Australia. Spent 5 years in Australia. From there to the UK, which was planned to be 6 months to a year, ended up being 5 years. And then I went on a holiday to Spain, and I fell in love with the place, and I thought, boy, I'd love to live here. Long story short, I moved to Spain 16 years ago, and I'm still here.
That's so, wow. That's ballsy. That's pretty fierce, my friend. That is really cool. Okay. So here's what I want. Tell them what you do today, because I know you've had this kind of curvy journey. So what do you serve people today, and kind of what's your brilliance in that?
Yeah, I always say, like, I've changed career more often than places. so today I call myself passion business coach, because in my ideal world, everybody spends their time doing work they're passionate about, doing something that really nourishes the soul, that really impacts people, rather than just going through the motions, doing what you expected to do, and be on that little hamster wheel autopilot. And so I support people who want to get off the hamster wheel and start their own business and have something they're really passionate about and want to turn into a business. And as you well know, and you just said it, it's like, it's not a straight line, and it always, there's a guy called Todd Henry. He wrote a book called, I've forgotten the name now. Oh God, boy, yeah, embarrassing. Something about creativity. And basically he says every creative process has a U-shape, right? And I certainly, agree with that. And I always feel like it's like walking into a canyon. And so when you first start out and there's all the enthusiasm and you've got this idea, it's like, oh, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to, this is someone going to do that, and then I'm going to live like this, and and you can see it all play out, and sort of the destination is just across the canyon, and it doesn't really look very far, and you can see clearly what you want it to be, and then you start walking, and then you sort of head down into the canyon, and then it gets like the thick and the bushes, and you sort of get scratched, and you lose your way, and then you get to that point where you don't really see anymore where the heck the destination is, and whether you're really cut out for that. And so then there's basically two ways this can go. Either you let those doubts and those moments of discouragement get to you and stop moving forward, and just like, well, let's just get a job and give up. And I think there's a lot of people will do that, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the other option is to find your way out. And my mission is to help people, first of all, prepare them for what's ahead, because most people sort of start walking and basically fall into that dip,
right,
all surprised. because they don't expect, and there's so much misleading information out there in a sense of make 6 figures in 6 weeks, just follow my proven success formula, right? And so that sets these expectations that it is that straight line and it is short, and then they kind of fall and then start questioning themselves. So it's first of all preparing people for what's ahead, and then also to help them out of the thick at the bottom of the canyon. And it really takes the 3 shapes. It's helping them find the path, and you call it strategy, whatever you want to call it, but find the path. And my background as a programmer comes in there, like the tech skill to actually implement the strategy, not just collecting them.
Right.
And a big part of it is the inner work, because there will be moments when you doubt yourself and when you're not sure, and when you procrastinate, and basically help people sail through those storms so that they can actually get to the other end where the pieces fall together and the whole thing picks up momentum and starts flowing. So that's what I do.
That is juicy. Woof. So I'm going to spend a moment later on when you're in the canyon part of it, because I think that is so, oh my God, that's where people break down. But I want to go back a few steps. You use the word passion. I use the word desire, kind of the same thing, right? It's so easy when you're sitting there and you have the passion or you have the idea, the desire is going, do this. It's like calling you going, pick me. And you got that little voice in your head, like, oh, that's stupid. Nobody will want that. Everybody already knows that, and because it's not sometimes analytical or logical, or there's not the path, right? Like, oh, if I get that 4-year degree, then I can get a degree in China. It's not like that. And so how do you, because I know people get stuck there. So how do you help people with that shift of like, hell to the you're supposed to do it. Here's how you own it, right? Let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah. I the first thing that jumps to mind that I see a lot with people, it's the idea of taking steps to actually bring that idea to life feels like they're on a tightrope with no safety net.
Absolutely.
Right. So it's like, and they're kind of like, oh, what if I get it wrong? What if I make a mistake? And it feels like something really horrible is bound to happen. So my intention is to help them see that, what, it's actually a chalk line on the ground.
A what on the ground?
A chalk line on the ground.
Chalk line on the ground. Okay. Oh,
so there's basically,
you're not over
nothing,
here. You're right here.
There's nothing at stake, right? What have you got to lose? What's the worst thing that can happen? The worst thing that can happen is that, that you think can happen is that you have an idea and you try it out and it doesn't work the way you thought.
Right.
Well, so there's other ideas to focus on. And how do you know that that's worse than sometimes actually getting what you think you want might actually be worse?
There we go.
And I actually think, and I personally think that, and I think that's where sort of the East German background comes in, is that sense that, what's worse? Not ever having tried.
Oof.
Looking back 5 years, 10 years, 20 years later.
Regret.
And thinking, I wonder what life would have been like if I had, gone that other way. And I think that is really what's a lot worse than trying it and falling flat on your face.
Good. Well, what I know, Anke, is that there still is again, we have different cultures. We have very different cultures, but the culture in the West is the puritanical work ethic, stick your head down. And I don't think 100 years ago, the farmers in the fields were like, does this bring me joy? Because I'm only chasing that. You know what I mean?
Yes,
like
absolutely.
Yeah. And so I'm sure your country has the same thing in some ways. And so it literally is in a collective that who are you that you want pleasure and passion and desire? Like, what an asshole for wanting that, right? And so it's not the norm. I think it's becoming more prevalent, even the term passion projects, or people have passion businesses, and I'm all about follow your desire, source with desire. But you have to understand there's also an equal force out there that is just like, is that going to pay the bills? And what kind
Absolutely.
of, so just know that if you have that, the work I do, I bring up my little pendulum. If there's any doubt in your head, like, God, is this okay? I could pendulum you, or you could just literally ask your body and say, is this belief mine? Like this belief of I can't, it's silly, nobody will buy it, it'll never work. Just literally ask yourself, is this mine or somebody else's? And your body can say, holy shit, it's somebody else's. Then just go return to sender.
Yeah,
because
that's so true.
If you have the desire, you're supposed to do it. That's the thing, right? Like,
yeah, you wouldn't even have, like, there's a sense like, okay, if you even feel drawn to it, you know, there is something about that. And it's funny, the whole like illusion of security or job security, and I think that is something that is already at play, and I think it's about to get a whole lot worse really quickly. Then, you know, because if you look at the way the job market is predicted and projected to go, you know, with more automation and artificial intelligence, there's a whole lot of professions that are going to disappear in the next couple of decades. And to be honest, I actually started my own business because I wanted job security. You know, like literally I started, like when I first quit my job and moved to Spain and started the sewing business, a big part of it was like, you know what? I'm 39 now. So I can still call, you know, like pick up a new IT project like this. I just call a mate. I just like, you know, call some recruiter and I get a new project like instantly. But how much longer? Do I really want to be there at 45, at 50 and send out programmers a resume? You know, like resumes for programmers job where the guy looking at it is like 25. Grandma want here, you know, so and I also, you know, I've worked in corporate for long enough to know you're always just one restructuring thing away from losing your job, you know. And if you're heading towards 40, 50 or over, that's heavy. That's like, it's not that you can just go and say, oh, just pick up another job. It's not that easy often at that age. And so I actually thought, you know, like now is still a good time to change tack, to try it out, to just give it a go. And if it does go pear-shaped, I can still go back. But I really looked at it, so, okay, now it is the time to build up my own business. So I never have to, I don't even have a resume anymore, you know.
Hear you. I've been self-employed for like 35 years. I hear you.
Yeah.
So you had a sewing business, sewing flamenco costumes. How freaking cool is that, right? And now you coach business owners. So talk about the concept of, because it takes a certain, like, you know, to be fierce, like I am here. That's what you're kind of like, that's what we're working on. How did you step into the brilliance of like, I can help other people do this? Like, and maybe what is your brilliance? Because we talked about, like, you talked about the metaphor, like I felt it. But how, I know I'm asking you so many questions here, but how did you step into it? How did you say yes to it? And was there ever the time you were like, oh shit, it's not gonna work?
No, that is really funny. Like, I think I'm weird like that. And even with the sewing business, like, which was so ridiculous that there was literally no pressure on it. And I sometimes think that was actually what made it work, because I had nothing on it. It was just so out there. You know, to say, well, just ditch an IT job, move to a different country, start a sewing business. You have no idea. You know, it's like, it's just totally ridiculous, really. And so there was, but at the same time, there was no pressure to succeed, because if that hadn't worked, well, yeah, you know, it was fair enough.
You know, like there was anyway, right?
Yeah, exactly. So there was really sort of no pressure to succeed. So, but I don't know, like somewhere, and you understand, like that, there was sort of a gut feel.
Yeah,
I'm gonna pull this off somehow. I didn't know how, and I certainly found myself like deeper in the dip of the canyon than I ever expected. But somehow I knew I was going to figure that out, and this, like, I had exactly that same sensation when I decided that I wanted to support other people to build their business. I kind of knew, I was gonna, I don't know, whatever it takes, I was gonna pull that off.
Here's what
because
I
don't know, there was always the idea of, you know, when I was at uni studying languages, we had this one professor who had this idea of, you know, she wasn't into positive, like she wasn't into encouraging, she was into kind of, you know, You know, she had a whip. She'd come and she said, well, actually, you know, the first class, she says, well, okay, you know, 70% of you will never finish this course, and 99% of you will never get a job as a translator.
Oh my God.
And all I could hear was like, okay, so 1%
the one, I'm in.
1% made it. So it is possible. Off we go. You know? So, and I can't explain where that comes from. I really don't know, but it's just something that I've always had in my gut. It's like,
hold on. Because I want to unpack success strategies, right? And so one of your success strategies is you never quit.
That's true.
Right. And you're and you trust the gut. And instead of looking at the evidence, like, but 70, you know, because you could have looked at all that, you were like, oh, I'm going to look at the possibility.
Yes, absolutely.
Very cool. I think, you know, so years, you know, probably 10 years ago, I went bankrupt. And there was this moment, and talk about going in the canyon. So I was going to have to lose it. You know, I was like, okay. And I got to the point of like, well, I should be willing to get a job. I should be willing to waitress, because that's what I could do. You know, I'm not employable in any other form. And so I'm hiking, and I've just lost my car. I'm going to be losing my house. I'm filed bankruptcy. And I get okay with God. I'm like, all right, I'm willing. I'll do whatever. If I got a waitress, and I had just reached out to somebody, like, let's talk to so-and-so, see if I get a waitress job. And I'm hiking, and I twist my ankle, and I'm laying on my back going, God, God, I am screaming and yelling. And on one hand, I was willing, but I literally was on my back, you know, going, really, this isn't going to work either. Like you can't apply for a waitress job when you're on freaking crutches with a sprained ankle. And because overriding, I had the knowing that this was my path. Now I was willing. I thought I have to get willing, but it was like, no, your path is your path. And so talk about sometimes when you're at the bottom, or the zigs and the zags, and it feels like, oh God, nothing's going to work. How do you stay true to, no, this is my path? Because you seem to just do it naturally and logically. So break it apart a bit. How do you, maybe there were times where it was hard. How do you not give up? How do you keep going?
Well, it's a bit of, I think, what alternatives can you see?
Okay.
Right? Because, you know, I remember like plenty of moments, you know, with the sewing business where I thought, you know what, you know, and actually looked for jobs.
Okay.
You know, and I was like, oh God. But then I saw like the, you know, programmers jobs, IT jobs, and I'm like, oh, just reading the job ad makes me cringe. And I was like, I would never work for that person. It's like, okay, let's just make another skirt, right? So, and I really can't tell you what would have happened if somebody had offered me a great job at the time. Really can't tell you. You know, I might have taken a breather until it would have nagged at me again. You know, I can't imagine that I would have just gone back to corporate life, you know, but I probably would have taken a breather at some point if it hadn't just been like right in the middle of economic crisis in Spain. So where nobody literally had a job. But there's also that sense when like I think nobody is free from doubts sometimes. And to think that a doubt is nothing more than a thought that I'm not obliged to listen to.
Woo!
Right?
That's a good one. That's a good one.
And so I can have moments of doubt. And oh, what am I doing here? You know, will this ever work? Or how long will this take? Or whatever. But then if you see that it's just a thought, then I can feel like that, and I can feel discouraged, and I can feel whatever I want, and I can still take, like, it doesn't mean that I can't move.
Okay, love that. So what you do is you compartmentalize it. And what I say is you put it outside of yourself, like, oh, there's that doubt thought. Oh, okay, I'm having a doubt thought.
Absolutely. I'm having a doubt thought. Yeah. But I'm going to do a video.
Because most people are like, oh my God, I doubt. That means something. And then they change course, right? So what I hear.
Exactly that. Yeah.
The overarching thing in both of our stories is both of us in times of like, we're like, should we get a job? Oh shit, right? But for me and you, and I don't know that you're saying this, but I'm saying it for you, is you had a commitment to follow your passion. You had a commitment. And it's kind of like being in a relationship or a marriage. Sometimes you might you'd be like, oh, you are such an asshole. I'm so sick of you right now.
Yes.
But you're like, but I'm committed to you, so I'll just sit down and we'll, you know what I mean? The commitment keeps you in hard times. And so I think that has to be in place. Like if you are on path to follow your passion or to find your brilliance, the most important thing is, like, as I said, put a ring on it. Like, put a ring on it. Because if you do not commit, then you're always looking for, oh, it's hard. Oh, I won't do it. I can't do it. As opposed to once you 100% commit, then you'll be given all the resources and the tools you'll need, angelic support, all kinds of cool stuff happens. And the doubt thoughts are just, well, whatever. It's just a doubt thought because I'm on my path, right?
Absolutely. And I must say, there is something that keeps me on track as well. And it sort of, like, when I was little, I grew up with my grandparents, right? The first 3 years. And so my grandma was basically what's the mother for other people, like, you know, that close connection I always had to her, with her. And I saw her basically, and it sounds cruel, but you'd have to know my grandpa to sort of really, he was like, if you watch a Second World War movie and there is some German who was like really like, you know, that rigid German, that was my grandpa, right? Emotional intelligence towards zero. And so my grandma was this sparkly, you know, soul full of life, but then like he wouldn't kind of, you know, but she had always like, her whole life was always like, oh, I'd love to, but I can't because I'm an orphan. I can't because of the war. I can't because grandpa won't let me. So there was the whole life. And as long as I can remember when I was little, she had this theory. She says, oh, she'd read somewhere that women statistically outlive their husbands by 7 years, right? And she was 7 years younger than my grandpa. So her whole calculation was, I'm going to have 14 years where I can do all the things that I've been wanting to do. Right?
But she had to wait till somebody died? That's her strategy?
Yes, that was her strategy. And the thing was, she passed away first. Right? Oh. So she never, and that really, that so
to imprint on you.
Hit me in that sense that, and she was full of, like, you know, if somebody doesn't have aspirations or doesn't have things they want to do and they are content with going through the thing, you know, like the farmer doing their thing, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. But when there is something calling you and when you have those things that you'd love to do, and then, well, you know, and I thought, I don't want to get to the end of my life looking back at all the things that I would have loved to do. So I always feel if I'm scared of something, it's that, you know, so I rather.
That's a driver for you, right? That
yes, absolutely. You know, and then, so in case of doubt, try it out. so it's like, that's always because for me, the worst case scenario is to, and that's the thing, it's like, you never know, you know, absolutely. I come to the end of my life, who knows when that will be, but I said, I want to be able to turn back at any moment, like literally any moment, thinking I've used the time I've had to the fullest. You know, there's always more stuff that you might want to do, but I don't have to look back thinking, oh God, I've wasted all these years, you know, and that for me is like so strong.
So that's why my concept of living in and working in your brilliance is imperative. It's not like, oh, that's a nice little new agey topic. You know what I mean? It's like, why in the world would you want to reflect over, like, I mean, your grandmother, oh my God, I wait my whole life. And then maybe I'll have this little time. Oh, that's heartbreaking. So listeners, if you are listening or watching, like, are you doing that? Are you, you know, when I hear Anke's story and kind of our conversation today, it is follow the passion, follow the desire, follow the, I don't want to have regrets. So something is either going to push you, like, oh, I don't want to have that anymore, or something's going to pull you, right? I don't want to live a full life. And then you make a commitment to it. You make an absolute commitment to it. So when you're in the canyon, having doubts, having fears, you don't give up. And what we didn't talk about, this is the most important piece, having support.
Absolutely.
Because it's real easy when you're down there and your head's going crazy. Like when I was on my back, basically on the hiking trail, going, what the fuck? I had to call a girlfriend going, could you get me some crutches? Like, I can't go, I need crutches. You know what I mean? Like literally the metaphor of, I can't walk right now. I need to be helped up to this next level. And how many times have we had people in our lives going, so either two things, I will help you here, or even more important thing, I can see your brilliance and I'll hold it for you till you can, right? So talk about that, because I think that's a really important piece, is the support piece.
Absolutely. And you know how they say, like, you can't read the label when you're sitting inside the jar? You know, it's
I've never heard that. Is that a German thing? I don't know that one.
No, I can't remember. It's not my invention, but it's funny, and I never forgot it.
Yeah.
But I think it's true. Like, when you have those moments, somebody else can see, no, you're fine. Like, you're fine. You just have your head stuck in the sand, and you just can't see clearly right now. You know, so I think it's vitally important. And I think it makes a lot of sense. And that's something that I took a long time to learn, really, was to actually get professional support, in the sense of, you know, be it a mastermind, get a coach, connect with other people on the same path. Because I think friends and family sometimes they're quite bluntly unsupportive.
Absolutely.
You know, and I quite a lot. I mean, I hear it a lot. It's like, oh, but you know, my family says, and it's usually a reflection of their own fears. Exactly. You know, and there's a lot, but it's usually anything they say has nothing to do with you. It's about their own idea of what life should look like. And so, and even if they are on paper supportive, their advice isn't always, you know, they're not on that path. They have no idea what you go through. So to actually get somebody to help you out who's on the same path, or who's speed where you want to go, I think that really makes a huge difference.
Oh, absolutely. And somebody, I always say, when you get support, somebody whose values are really similar to yours, that's so important,
absolutely
right? Like that's, because if you're looking for support emotionally or energetically, and you get somebody that's like, this is follow my formula, it's not going to work.
No, that's so true.
So before we're wrapping up, a couple more minutes, anything else about like how to just step in? Like, is there any, you know, how to just own it, to step in, be your brilliant self? Do you have anything else?
Yeah, one thing that keeps kind of nagging at the back of my mind, or that I'd love to mention, it's about giving yourself permission to bring in all of you. Right? Because it's, well, especially with having changed careers several times, you know, I've gone through the motions, and for a long time I had this sensation like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I ever find, focus on one thing? Why do I have to jump from one to the other? Until I realized, well, actually I wasn't. At the heart of it, I was always doing one thing. I was bringing ideas to life. I was creating, and it just took different
iterations of that. Yeah.
It just took, sometimes it's a dress, sometimes it's software, now it's helping other people build their business. So it's always that creative process that it all comes back to for me, right? But to finally come back to that question about stepping into the brilliance, I started to sense, like, or have that sensation of rootedness, of like, that's it. The moment I gave myself permission to bring everything to the table, right? Because when I was doing, like, when I was working in programming, it was all, you know, it was creative to a certain extent, but very structured, very analytical. And I love that. I got a very strong analytical mind, right? So then I thought, well, but it's kind of like, you know, there's this whole creative side of me that doesn't get fed at all. So I really went 180 degrees in the other direction. All of a sudden, it was full creativity. And sometimes I remember, especially in the later years, there was this sense of like, you know, there is just so much more of me that doesn't get expressed here. Right? And now, where I'm thinking, oh, wow, this feels so,
Oh, I
there
love
is space for the
yes,
creativity,
yes,
there's
yes, yes, yes.
space for the intuition, there's space for the analytical mind. And even when I kind of consciously decided, you know what? Yes, I'm a coach, but I'm also a geek. So I will throw
Be a
the tech
geek.
support,
There we go.
into the ring, right?
Yeah.
So if you have a question about API keys, I'm your girl, right? So, and to actually let loose with that instead of like, oh no, I've got to be a coach, so I can't be technical. And, you know, if you allow you, like, give yourself permission not to choose.
This is so good. You know, I'm just going to say, because part of me is a little sassy girl, so I'm going to say, fuck the rules, right? Because we say basically, no, a coach should stay here and you should outsource that, and they're going to be confused. Well, that's bullshit. And so I love it. And Anke, you can feel it. You can feel it. Like guys, if you're listening to this and watching it, you feel the resonance when she talked about bringing it on. Like, you literally can see it in your body, and I can feel the energy of that. That's what you want. And there is a way. There is a way. If you work with a great coach like Anke or me, we can show you how to bring the parts together. Now, that doesn't mean, you know, you're making websites for people and you know what I mean? It doesn't have to be 50-50. Sometimes you just sprinkle in things. Sometimes you just have expertise and understanding. Sometimes you lead, and sometimes it's just intangibles, right? For me, it was bringing in my healing gifts and my spirituality and the, like, the ninja magic that I do. That was really scary, right? Because I was selling marketing. So sometimes it's tangible things. Sometimes it's more of your being. Sometimes it's more of your personality. Like, I've actually had people hire me and said, I hired you because you swear and it made me trust you.
I love it. Yeah, I'm the same. Absolutely.
Then I've had other people say, I can't be with you because you swear. And I'm like, bye-bye, you're not my people, right?
That's fine.
So your people, if you pull all the parts of yourself together, your ideal soul clients are going to be like,
yes,
right?
absolutely.
So that's what you,
and I think the moment you, and I kind of sense, like, I could really feel it when you were saying, when you allowed, the moment you give yourself that permission to, you know, I've got that healing side, I've got that spiritual side. And when you allow it in, it's like, it all sort of comes together and it all makes sense. And the moment it makes sense for you, it really sits. There's this root, you've got the tree behind you, you know, that there's you can sense the roots, you know, then the rest is strong. Yeah.
What a fabulous episode. My gosh. So, love, I'm sure people are going to be jumping off their devices going, how the hell do I find this woman? I need more of Anke. So where do people find you?
The easiest place, well, you can actually Google me with, if you spell it with double, like my name's Anke Herrmann, HERRMANN. So you can just Google my website, ankeherrmann.com. That's ANKEHERRMANN.com. You can tell I've spelled this a million times living in Spain. And so everything else is there. I'm active on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook, and so I'm pretty easy to find. And you can go to passionbusinesspodcast.com as well. So that takes you to the podcast.
And the way I met Anke is I was a guest on her podcast.
Yeah.
So we had this like spark of like, oh, you're cool. I got to hang out with you, girl. So that's really fabulous. So this has been fabulous. I particularly love, like, bring all your parts together like that. That just like lit me up at the end. And so I really hope our listeners get some good stuff today. And here's what I would love. In the notes below, put down what you're going to take away and leave us some comments, leave us some love on iTunes or wherever you're seeing this. And so peace and blessings. Thank you for showing them. Thanks, Anke, for bringing you. Fabulous.
Thanks so much for having me.
Okay, bye.